After completing the main story of Red Dead Redemption 2 and opening up to John Marston and his family in the epilogue, I was excited to explore the deeper western parts of the map. Throughout the game, while I was taking a break from the gang and the overarching story, I loved to explore. I took my horse and tried to look for whatever mischief or secrets I could find. Maybe I would hunt down some animals, or go fishing with some nice fella I met on some previous expedition. Whatever it was that I would get up to, it was always something random, every time. Everywhere always had something new. So when the lower parts of West Elizabeth and the wild parts of New Austin opened up for me in the epilogue, I went on yet another journey just to see what I could find there. I explored Blackwater and got John a new haircut. I chased some farmer's bull down until he got the best of me. I bounty hunted with Sadie Adler. I took a journey west and found Armadillo almost in ruins, and then I got shot up by some outlaws. I saved a train that was being held up, and I ran around for almost 20 minutes finding new species of birds, lizards, and animals. An adventure like this is only possible in the world of Red Dead Redemption. There was no plot, only open lands and player choice. In most open world games, choice is something that the developers never hold back from giving. You are always free to do what you want, when you want, in most cases. You can let the player do everything to their heart's content as much as you want, but they're not going to be interested if they don't have anything to keep them occupied. The events I mentioned previously in my journey through Red Dead Redemption 2 was just about over an hour's worth of content. And the fact that RDR2 can cram that amount of entertainment into a game in such a small amount of time, while still remaining fully immersive, is a pure marvel of technical genius. You don't need to explore long to find something interesting, whether that be a random stranger to greet, or a couple of runaway criminals asking for a favor. An open world game must feel full in order to be a great experience. So tell me why Fallout New Vegas feels so interesting. When I first set out into the vast landscape of the Mojave Desert, I had no clue what to head towards. I had never properly played a Bethesda game before, except for about 6 hours of Skyrim, which mostly included running, so I looked for landmarks that I could explore. The first thing that caught my eye was this half-beaten cross, which is where I got jumped by a few rad scorpions before I headed towards somewhere. I had my eyes set on the strip since the start, but decided I wanted to see what else I could find before I headed towards it. And as day turned into dusk, and eventually hit nightfall, it was only once I was alone with the sound of my footsteps and the chirping of crickets around me, that I realized just how empty this world was. The vast valleys of dirt and mountains of rock felt shallow and colorless around me, and the empty buildings and cars I'd been walking past started to feel decrepit and lonely. After exploring for almost an hour, all I had found was a bunch of angry beasts, a prison now taken over by escaped slaves, and a legionist cult burning down a village with all of its occupants. While exploring these lands, I couldn't help but feel unwanted. The lands were scary, and everywhere I went wanted nothing to do with me. And it was this feeling that made me feel right at home. I mean, it's literally Fallout. This is a nuclear apocalypse. No wonder why the lands feel so unwelcoming and desolate. Hell, the first thing you see as the player is you getting killed and being left to die. Because of this, it makes sense why most open world games are also role-playing games. If you were dropped into a dirty, empty nuclear apocalypse, or the outlaw-filled, ever-changing world of the late 1800s America, you would have no choice other than to take on the role that the world has given you. It's what makes you feel like you belong, and from there you're given the freedom to create your own story, make your own adventures, and immerse yourself. Immersion. When I've heard other people discussing this topic, they often go over the lack of menus in games, realistic graphics and sound design, and the imagination that comes with silent protagonists. But I think we'll save that for another video. For now, I want to talk about the immersion of storytelling. Tell me, when you are, let's say, reading a book, Do you see your own fingers turning the pages? Can you feel the chair or bed or whatever is under you as you scan the pages and read its words? Do you even notice your breath or your heartbeat? Or instead, do you see the characters that you are reading about? Do you feel the fabric of their clothes or smell the air of the room they're in? If you read books with good stories, or even read at all, I'm sure you would have said the latter over the former. And that's simply because of great storytelling. Take the two games you've talked about so far, Red Dead Redemption 2 and Fallout New Vegas, and explain to me which game has better storytelling. No, seriously, go ahead and put your answer in the comments. The answer is neither. They both do storytelling, just in different ways. Red Dead Redemption 2 tells its story through great characters and fantastic writing, whereas Fallout New Vegas' story is its world and its consequent world building. Freedom through structure, and freedom through expansion. Now, I would like to introduce to you open world games without as much freedom. An open world game is often described as a free roaming world that typically lacks level structures like locked doors or invisible walls that prevent the player from journeying beyond them. But in one subgenre of open worlds, semi-open worlds, there are some limitations. Metro Exodus is one of my favorite open world games, yet it doesn't have the usual likeness of an open world game. It's what I would call more of a semi-open world. Instead of one giant area where you can head from one end all the way to the other end straight off rip, its game is split up into three main sections. You have the Volga, the Caspian, and the Taiga. And as you probably noticed, they all represent different seasons. The progression between each area feels great in terms of story and gameplay progression, as each one presents new enemies, weapons, and introduces completely new world building and story elements that expands the lore of this post-apocalyptic Eastern European world. And this also solves a problem that most open worlds suffer from: feeling fresh. After going through the many story missions and quests, by the time you end up needing to travel to the next area, it doesn't feel like you've spent too much or not enough time in this environment, which makes the next area feel both refreshing and in most cases an improvement upon the previous. So, where's the issue in this type of open world progression? Well, once you move on to the next area, you're locked out of the previous one of course, but in this game you can collect suit modifications which you can find in many places throughout the game, and these provide specific upgrades such as the night vision goggles or extra storage space for healing items. The fact that these items are not only hard to find if you're not looking for them, and that if you don't grab them before you leave you'll never get them again, is such an unfortunate side effect to this type of world progression. The developers did attempt to medicate this slightly by giving more necessary items such as the night vision goggles, more locations to be found in every part of the game. It still just makes it something that you need to be aware of through your playthrough. And with this system being the same with many of the weapon attachments as well, it just makes me feel the need to search every room of every building in the entire map, just in case there's an item or upgrade that I miss. And because these attachments and suit upgrades are so useful during the game, it's just kind of a hassle. Yet, in Death Stranding, this isn't a problem. Like Metro Exodus, Death Stranding also has three main regions for its world: the Eastern region, Central region, and Western region. The Eastern region is where you start out the game, and it essentially serves as a tutorial ground, teaching the player about simple mechanics, gadgets, and gameplay. The Central region, however, takes this a bit further, being much larger than the first region, and introducing many new gameplay elements, as well as more verticality to the map overall. And finally, the Western region, which may as well not even be considered as a region since it's only available for a small part of the game and isn't very large, but it is there. Now the difference between Death Stranding's semi-open design and Metro Exodus is that even once you progress from each region, you are physically locked from going back, but there are still some mechanics that allow you to travel to and from them at will, like with Fragile's Jump, which is essentially just a fast travel, but with it you can go back and complete some deliveries that you missed, as well as finding collectibles and completing other miscellaneous tasks. The collectibles in Death Stranding are only these memory chip things that act as lore dumps from the world before the Death Stranding, and so, unlike Metro Exodus with its suit upgrades, they tend to be not so important during the game, and with the deliveries, the only reason you would need to go back to a previous region to complete some that you missed would only be to build a higher connection level with the people you deliver to, as all the important deliveries would already be completed as you progress through the story. With these two reasons that you would need to use Fragile's Jump not really being issues at all, it sort of just sits in the corner most of the time as just a cool feature. You would think that fast travel would be a super useful addition to a game like Death Stranding, as the gameplay is literally just walk from point A to point B, but if you use it, you can't take any items with you at all. Because if you could, that would obviously be very broken in a mailman simulator, and I think this balance makes the game more enjoyable overall. Unlike Metro Exodus, for Death Stranding, the journey is the destination, and the actual destination is just another box for you to tick off. Traversing across the world, one foot in front of the other, leaving footsteps in the grass behind you as you go, is so soothing. Death Stranding is a walking simulator, and it is both relaxing and addicting. When delivering however many boxes of miscellaneous items to whatever location, you can choose where you want to go and how you want to do it. Do you decide to walk through that river or risk jumping that ravine? Or do you come prepared and buy a vehicle to carry your purchases? The choices that you make, whether that be consciously or subconsciously, always feel deliberate. And this feeling is amplified when you consider that every path you make could also lead a path for other players. Death Stranding has this unique mechanic where everywhere a player goes is stored as data in the game, and is then used to sort of erode that portion of the map out. It's why you see paths as you go along, or the sides of mountains shaved down. If you see a path straight to your destination, it usually means hundreds of players before you have taken that exact path. And now it's your turn. It's very interesting. The freedom that you have as a player in Death Stranding is more than I've seen in most games. After the first tutorial phase at the beginning of the game, all you are given throughout is a location you need to get to, sometimes with a time limit, and that's all. You of course are handed little tips as you progress and unlock new mechanics and items, but mostly you just need to figure out yourself how to get there in whatever which way you want. Efficiently, slowly, do you take a slight detour to complete another delivery on your way, or do you just explore freely? For this video, I suppose I just wanted to look at some of my favourite open world games and express my favourite theme that they, for the most part, all share. Freedom. And although you can only feel so free in a video game, I feel like they all do it right, in their own way. I wanted to discuss more topics like multiplayer open worlds and all of the different ways to traverse open world games. But that's a whole different ballpark to single player story games, and this one in itself could probably be its own video, so let me know if you want that. The definition of freedom is the state of not being imprisoned or enslaved, unrestricted and right of access. So, what is the moral of this video? I don't know, go outside. Also, open world games are really dumb.